cool. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, so basically Ball's Pyramid is the world's largest sea stack. It sits right out in the middle of the ocean, about a third of the way from Australia to New Zealand. So there's not much of a way to get there other than you either fly to Lord Howe Island, which is a small island just nearby it. You can see, you can't see in these photos, but basically it's about 20 k's away, and it's got about 400 permanent inhabitants on it. So ever since anyone's climbed the pyramid, most parties have all gone to Lord Howe Island and either hired someone to take them on a little tinny boat over there and drop them off and then pick them up a few days later. But that's always had some issues, always been contentious. So the only way to do it now, especially since climbers found a stick insect, is to bring your own boat. So you have to come from Australia, and that means you have to leave from Sydney or from Port Macquarie is the closest part of Australia. So yeah, the requirements are you need to be experienced at trade climbing, have a boat, and live in or near Sydney. So very few people are even able to have the opportunity to try this. So when Tom and Jack bought a boat and were also keen to do this, we thought it was too good of an opportunity to miss. So we basically started putting some preparations together, and about 2 or 3 years later, we were on our way to doing it. So there's a few photos of it. There's some pretty crazy wildlife. These are some of the, I forget the name of the birds. I'll remember them later, I'm sure. But this is a juvenile bird. Some other really cool ones. These feathers are incredible. Yeah, and this is a photo of the stick insect that's on the island. So climbers found this in the 60s and then subsequently got banned from ever going back on the island, even though there's a lot of evidence to suggest there's quite a lot of these and that climbing doesn't have any impact on them whatsoever. So it's a big contentious topic, and basically it's just too hard for them to manage. They don't want to manage people getting on and off the island, so it's easier for them to just ban it. Just like any other area there's access issues with, this is no different really. So yeah, they're quite enormous stick insects. You can see this is one of the previous expeditions back in the 60s. So they were going for 2 weeks and staying there the whole time. So you can see how many supplies they need. It's quite a full-on expedition, even when you could get permission, when it was legal. This is a French team that was one of the last teams to do it, I think in the 70s. This is a recent trip in 2014. It was the first team to go there without permission. And you can see how it formed. It's basically the remnants of an old volcano, which used to be enormous, and this is all that's left. So, something that's really amazing to imagine in any of the photos is, what if there were still remnants of the volcano still around? Imagine the highlines between those. But yeah, this is the last piece remaining, and it's still massive. So it would have been an absolutely enormous volcano when it was at its full height and a full crater. So we had to decide on what route we wanted to take as well, was another part. We wanted to do a highline on it. That was, part of our main objective too. We were looking at, where would we want to do a highline? Basically all we could get information from is photos. So, this gap here, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but hopefully you can. It'll make it a bit hard to present otherwise. But basically this is where we wanted to put the highline.
We can see it really well.
Sorry, what was that?
We can see your mouse.
Can you see the mouse?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we wanted to put the highline up there. We had no idea what length that is. The whole pyramid is 560 meters high. It's enormous. So, trying to get a sense of that scale is really hard. So we brought 40 meters of pink sheet with us because it's, some of the lightest, stretchiest webbing we can get. And we thought it can't be more than 40 meters long. that should be a good candidate for a highline. It also lined up well because it's on the original route, which is this one here going up that ridge line. Makes it, really easy because this is the easiest way to the top, and it has the highline potential on the way. So that ticked a lot of boxes for us. This is a quite an interesting route, which was tried in 1971, and they got all the way up to here and then had to bail. There was a whole bunch of things that went wrong with that one, including pulling off like car-sized blocks of rock, and this whole wall is incredibly steep, like more than vertical, overhangs a little bit even. Would be really intimidating. Maybe it's 350 meters high, and they're almost at the section where it's really easy. But yeah, they ended up bailing, and one guy got swept into a sea cave. Anyway, we weren't going to try for anything more audacious than trying the simplest route to the summit, which is already around probably grade 16, 17, something like that, which on, average quality rock, trad climbing, is, scary enough already. So that's why we went with this one. So yeah, we had our topo ready to go. This is Tom, this is Jack. This is the boat they bought. So we had a few weeks beforehand. They had months before where they repaired the boat from, what they purchased at a bargain price. So we went out sailing a couple times to get in a bit of practice, just around Pittwater, Sydney, because I hadn't sailed much at all before. Stepan, neither. Both of us were completely inexperienced. Both Tom and Jack, they'd done a bit of trad climbing, but nothing super extensive either. So it was very much for about 3 weeks, we were just trying to heavily skill share with each other. Like they were teaching us to sail, and we were teaching them how to adventure climb, basically. Tom had a fair bit of experience, but it was even, our whole team needed basically a lot of training to work together. So here we are. So this is one of the routes we decided to do in the Blueies beforehand. It's a really old school grade 16 from Brighton Allen. Coincidentally, the guy that put up the first route on Ball's Pyramid as well. So it's basically just a rambling, choss fest up this big wall. This is actually right next to Pierce's Pass, is just over here. For anyone that knows the area. So we just had a bit of fun rambling up that, and then at the night times throughout these weeks, just trying to work out what certain bits of the pyramid would look like when we were actually there. We had no idea other than the photos, and as handy as the photos are, they're incredibly hard to decipher. So we've got three photos of the same spot, just trying to work out what that bit of rock is going to look like, and it still doesn't help at all. A lot of it was felt brand new when we were there. So lots of packing, lots of organising. It was weeks of, a bit of weight saving off backpacks. It was just full on, none of us had really done an expedition like this before, where it just required so much planning and forward thinking. It was all consuming of our lives for those couple of weeks there, getting everything ready. This was meant to be the send-off party, getting everything in the boat, all prepared, but, the mechanics still hadn't checked the inverter, so we couldn't leave until that was done. So still, this is the same afternoon, working into the night. Worked out, there's, I think, Stepan just going to sleep there on the wharf. Mostly it was Tom trying to get it all figured out. But it was until about 1 or 2 in the morning, and he still didn't quite get it right. So it wasn't until the next day that we finally got it all figured out. New inverter was in, it was all working. We could finally leave. So about 24 hours late, we left, which is important too, because, that's when we only had a weather window to get across to the island, we had to try and leave when the currents were good, when the tides were good, the wind's good, and then also that there's a good weather window to be able to climb there, so it's not, we're not getting hurricanes and cyclones out there. So it's important to try and get all of this at the right time of year. This was March, was a bit late in the season, but we managed to get a window to do it anyway. And also daylight is a big thing, having enough daylight to climb on there. We're pushed off from the jetty and we're on our way. Like, this is a big moment. all of that planning finally coming together. And here we are heading out of Sydney, sailing away from the sunset, but still with the sunset. Boat fully loaded. We had tried to have enough supplies for 5 of us for over a month. Because everything on the island's very expensive, so it was just a matter of trying to keep stocked, and we had about 5 days of sailing ahead of us, so we're all pretty motivated, but still was quite a lot of nervous anticipation, I imagine. So basically the sailing continued for those 4.5, 5 days, nights and days. This is the morning of the first day. I think this is a better video. So it was pretty special to wake up around the coast around Newcastle, and have, you'll see in 1 second, dolphins swimming out the front of the boat. As the sun's coming up, glassy waters. We've just been passing a bunch of tankers all night. So this was really special. I'd never seen dolphins in the wild before. This is very cool. And just cruising out to the middle of nowhere, just turned away from the mainland a couple hours before this. Here's Zach, he's our captain on the boat. So he was this is another crucial aspect of the expedition, is you needed someone to hold on to the boat for you while you're on the island. You can't just jump off and leave it hanging there or leave it docked. There's nowhere to dock it. So Zach was going to take care of the boat while we were on the island, which was just a massive favor. And, he helped a lot on sailing over there as well. He's probably one of the more experienced sailors, probably the most experienced sailor we had on the trip. That was really cool to have him along as well. So we got some pretty rough seas straight off the bat as soon as we started leaving. It was a weather window, but it wasn't the best one we had. So it looks kind of rough in this video, but it was really rough. I'm sure it could have been a lot worse. I'm sure some other sailors could tell me that, but it was enough to make me feel pretty seasick and enough to make the trip pretty just straining for these next few days. So I think Jack didn't eat for about 4 days straight. Between your shift, you've got about 4 hours on where you're on the whole time with a partner, sailing at any, could be any time of the night or the day. And then basically you change over and you go straight to bed because you need 4 hours of sleep, and then you're back on for another 4 hours again. This is on off for 4.5, 5 days. It's really, really hard. Takes a toll on you, especially when you're awake, you're getting splashed by water. It's cold. It's pretty miserable conditions. You barely want to eat anything. You've had maybe a couple nut bars that whole day. Every night we might we'd make a food up, but it wasn't much. Especially trying to cook with the gimbal. The gimbal was just all over the place. Basically this life just continued for a few days. It was a really rough experience. You can see, there's Tom not really having a great time. Although I'm not sure if this is the video or the next one, but after all that time, we eventually made it and could start to see. Can we see it in this one? I don't know. Lord Howe Island and Bull's Pyramid. No, this is still just in the middle of the ocean. Absolutely nothing surrounding you for days. And there we are. Yeah. So we've, sailed through the night, and came out of a storm, looked around and we're like, we're about, 60 k's away. We should be able to see it by now. And sure enough, we looked out on the horizon just as the storm cleared, and there it was. It's a photo. I'm not sure who got this one. But yeah, that's a much better photo than the video of Lord Howe. The Lord Howe has massive peaks as well. They're about 800 metre high cliffs on there as well. So they're, much higher than Bull's Pyramid even. The rest of the island, where people live is just this really flat part over here. So this whole area is just uninhabited as well. It's a pretty cool place to visit. Yeah, so we spent the rest of the day getting there. You can see for the last 5 days, the wind was blowing the complete opposite wrong direction. So we just had to tack zigzag back and forth. So, watching this chart was just an obsession over those 5 days. You just, you can't, I'm pretty sure we could get a little bit more if we tack now, and then we try tack, and we didn't get much, okay, we'll tack back. And then it's, just decisions all the time. Or if we adjust this mainsail, this sheet a little bit more, we can get a little bit more there. So, you can imagine how sailing races are so enticing after this. But yeah, you can see Ball's Pyramid just over there, 22 k's away or so. And so we pulled in. Something else I forgot to mention was the within 24 hours of leaving the coast, the motor just completely dismounted from its housings. Basically, it had just been glued down to the hull, 20 years ago, and the glue just failed. So the motor was rolling around all over the place. This is, something that weighs several hundred kilos. So, it could have easily just poked a hole straight through the hull and sunk the entire ship. And we had a life raft, but that wouldn't do much when the whole ship's going down and the life raft's under deck, stashed under 15 dry bags. So, Tom got down there in the diesel-filled, engine bay, rolling around in the high swells and tried to lash it all down and keep it in place, which he did a pretty good job of. And then, we were only on sail power then, so we had no options to do any sort of motoring stuff. So to get into Lord Howe is, you have to thread it through this reef. You can see all the shipwrecks either side of you on the way in, and it's only about 30 meters wide. So, these guys managed to sail it right in perfectly, and we landed in the protected bay. There's a reef just back here that protects this. So this is Mount Gower and Mount Lichberg, 800-meter cliffs. They're almost the size of El Cap, just sitting right there next to you. This is where we would have breakfast and wake up the next few mornings. It's a pretty cool life. Here's a little video of it's where we were moored. So we got in, and spoke to the local cop on the radio. There's no phone reception anywhere there. You can't just call, anything. So we radioed into the cop. He guided us in. He then booked us a table at the bolo. So we all jumped in the water and basically swam out to shore that afternoon. This is like quite late in the day already. And then, walked for about 5 k's. I think we got a hitchhike out to the polo. But this is some of the other mornings on the boat, just having a swim. It's quite a secluded location here. Like, we're just moored out in the water here. There's no one else around. This is just paddocks for cows. So it's a pretty nice place to be spending some time. And step on. Yeah, this is Lord Howe Island in general. It's just quite a chilled out little island. But yeah, there's not a lot to do there. So Stefan was getting some slacklining practice in there. This is the boat that comes in once a week and unloads all of the food and supplies, all that. Yeah, this is the island of Lord Howe. It's only about, I think, 8 kilometres from one end to the other, and there's 400 people live here permanently. And, they only allow 400 visitors at any time. You can't, they won't let anyone else on. So it's quite an exclusive bit of real estate in the world, just out there in the middle of the ocean by itself. So we went for a walk and had a bit of an explore for these first few days. We could get some reception at the local cafe, like $10 for about 1 gig or something. The bloody rip-off, but it was enough to check the weather forecast. And, we were able to look and see, okay, we've got a window coming up in about 2 days' time. So, we may as well get everything together and be prepared for it, because this might be the only opportunity we get for the entire, we had a month's worth of supplies, but, we still have to get back to Sydney. We still need a weather window for that. So our first goal was just at first chance, as soon as there's a weather window, we'll go. So that weather window turned out to be pretty accurate, and it was still holding true. So it wasn't, the greatest one in the world, but it was good enough for us to commit to leaving. Here we are sailing under Mount Gower, the 800-meter cliff, on our way out to Balls that morning. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning or something. A really early start. We had first aid kit, dry bag, in dry bags. getting a bit of rest before we get on. It's about a 4-hour sail from Lord Howe to Falls Pyramid. You know, and we have these dry bags. I think from memory we had 8 50-litre dry bags, and you know, these foam rollers and about 60 litres of water. So we had to get all of this from the boat onto the pyramid, which, you know, was another major logistical challenge too. Something that, you know, we didn't really practice much back in Sydney, but probably should have, because it was quite challenging. Yeah, again, more dolphins. You know, Lord Howe in the distance there, probably about halfway across now. Only about 10 k's to go. Yeah, Jack got these incredible shots. And, yeah, all high spirits. Everything's good. It's all going to plan. Finally getting to see Falls Pyramid up nice and close, which is pretty incredible. Yeah, so, you know, this time everything feels all fine and dandy. There's no real problems at all. But, you know, we did a lap around the pyramid, and as soon as, you know, we'd done one lap around, we were ready to go, and all of a sudden it's, you know, everything needs to be ready. Like, you know, all the supplies need to be thrown in the water, and it's just really hectic all of a sudden. So it turned from just this really chilled out sightseeing, you know, moment to all of a sudden everything's happening. You know, so we decided to land about here, just straight into the pyramid instead of over here where typically do, and they kind of traverse the sea level first and go up. But because, you know, time is of the essence for us, we need to get on it and get ourselves hidden, which means just getting up high as soon as we can before any other tourist boats arrive, before anyone sees us on it. You know, despite how remote this Lord Howe Island is, there's quite a few tourist boats go out and see this thing all the time because it is a really stunning bit of rock. So we wanted to be out of the way of that. Yes, this is some photos. Like, I didn't get any photos of our landing because everything was too hectic, really fast. But, you know, this is one of the other landings back in the 60s. You know, when the swell's calm enough, you have the opportunity to do this. You have so many people when there's, you know, no real time pressure. But for us, it was basically Tom and Jack jumped in the water with a tagline and swam out while we were letting it go. And we thought, 70 meters will be enough. Turns out 70 meters was nowhere near enough. We needed maybe like 200 meters. So we just started, you know, all of a sudden they're out there in the water. The waves are going up and down, and they're still miles from the pyramid. And we can't bring the boat any closer in, you know, because it's going to hit into some coral reefs around the area. So we're just trying to find any bits of rope possible, you know, just taking them straight off the boat, off of the rigging, tying them together, throwing everything on, like just adding stuff into the water. All of a sudden they're still swimming there. They're not even on the land yet. And I don't know how they did it, but somehow they managed to land, you know, on the pyramid and drag all the gear up behind them as well with the swell. Yeah, and then Stefan and I jumped in behind them, and we could barely even land on the pyramid as is without that extra weight of the tagline. And, you know, when we were just trying to hold on to the tagline and on the boat, it was cutting through our hands. You know, so I don't know how they managed to land on the pyramid like that. But yeah, we managed to get on somehow. And here we are, all geared up, getting ready. Stefan, we left about 20 litres at the base as well as an emergency in case we ran out of water, because there just isn't water on the pyramid otherwise, you know. It's quite a desolate little thing. We're sampling some of the rock. This is, I think the previous photo mentioned it. This is something about the core of the volcano is indicated by this red rock, and you don't get it anywhere else on the pyramid, just at the base here where we landed. So it was a bit of a different geological spot. But yeah, this is looking up at the imposing cliffs. We'll load, yeah, and you just have all these birds all the time circling around. I don't know if any sound will play on this, but yeah, so we started up our trip. You can see by this photo here, we came up here on this ledge and just kind of traversed along, and then up this next break, then traversed further, and then climbed up here, and then topped out onto, I think it was up here, yeah, and topped out on this we call Gannett Green. This is the first big flat spot on the whole pyramid, about 100 meters off the ground at this point. So it's quite a steep ramp of grass, really. You know, and the whole time we've probably got 15, 20 kilos on our back and about 10 litres of water in our hands each as well. So, you know, only got one hand to use to climb with. So, yeah, here you can see Jack and Stepan making their way up the slopes. And, yeah, this is a scientific expedition when they were in 2017. They were the first group to get permission since the 70s. Yeah, and we found some of their recent bolting efforts, and it's already just being grown over by the local vegetation with only 2 years. You know, that was already in 2 years. So anything, you know, anyone visiting does vegetation-wise is just instantly replaced. You know, it doesn't take long. Considering massive cyclones just rip, you know, enormous chunks and birds straight off the pyramid and then slam them into the water. It's, you know, it's quite a violent place. Like, just a couple of people walking around doesn't make a massive impact. Yes, this is coming up to Gannett Green, getting some of the first really proper views of the pyramid. And we're just climbing up this stuff with passing the water, the big water tanks up one behind each other. And then make it up onto Gannett Green. So we can actually start the first bits of climbing. And this is still the same day from leaving Lord Howard. You know, we maybe woke up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and now it's, you know, maybe 5 o'clock in the afternoon at this point. We're finally on, you know, 100 meters up the pyramid. So we're still going to get higher though, because we want to camp as high as we can, because the next day we want to try to get to the summit. So, you know, this means, yeah, right now we're at Gannett Green, and the next afternoon, or, you know, midday, we want to be there. So our aim was to try and camp in some caves we'd heard about up around here. So we started the first proper bit of climbing around about here, and basically made our way to that. You know, it was quite easy to find the first bit of climbing, because here's one of Bryden Allen's old carabolts from the 60s. Yeah, I think, yeah, 60s, maybe 61, maybe late 50s. Anyway, that marked the start of the route for us, which was good. So straight off the bat, yeah, it's quite steep. You got the 100 meters drop below you, and it was actually surprisingly good climbing. Some of the rock here was really nice. You know, at any other crag, it would stand alone as a quality pitch of climbing. But, you know, compared to the rest of the pyramid, it ended up decaying a little bit in some other spots. But around about here was really good. You know, finding some anchors, you had to be pretty creative though. Small cam, and yeah, and that sling's just over a bit of an edge. Yeah, and then you get some other really cool features you can sling. So, you know, some anchors are pretty good. Some more old bolts from Bryden. You know, at this point, this is sunset here, and you know, we still haven't found anywhere to sleep, so we're getting pretty desperate now, hoping we can find something. Still scrambling up these next sections in the dark, and it was Tom's turn to lead, and he, you know, kind of started approaching this really steep, overhanging bit of cliff, and was like, oh, I guess, you know, we're going to have to go up there, and hopefully we can find caves up in there. And so he just started up, you know, probably about, you know, grade 18 big moves, and all he had to protect himself were these little carrots. I think I managed to snap this one off actually, just with my fingers and a beaner, just to lever it off. But yeah, he managed to climb up into this really steep overhanging roof, and was like, yeah, I found a cave, it works. You know, so we were really happy that he had. So we climbed up into it, and, you know, made a bit of dinner to get to bed. I think this is one of the best photos of the trip. So the store was all out of other meals. So Stepan had bought himself, all they had left was cooked breakfast. So he was having cooked breakfast for dinner, I think every night of the trip, even. He really enjoyed it. And meanwhile, Tom's found himself a bird there. The wildlife is just so friendly. You know, it doesn't get any humans coming to the pyramid at all, or, you know, even in Lord Howe, it's incredibly friendly. So these birds were just flying and landing on our heads, you know, and just really curious to see why there were these humans all of a sudden camping on the side in the cave, the side of the cliff in the middle of nowhere. So Tom was just snuggling the bird while Stepan's enjoying his cooked breakfast. Yeah, so we woke up the next morning and really started to realize just how small this ledge was. Like, this was just taken out of my sleeping bag. I think pretty hard to get the picture because it's quite dark, but I think I have a better photo in a second. Basically, this is it was, the ledge worked, but it was very small. There wasn't a lot of room. We were quite literally just on the side of the cliff. You can see there, it's like probably a meter and a half to the back of the cliff there, and not exactly the flattest, most roomiest thing for 4 people. So we started the next pitch of climbing straight off of our bivvy spot. Did scissors, paper, rock, and I got picked for the next pitch of climbing, which was great. It was a really good pitch again. So it was a bit steep straight off the bat, but then it turned quite rambly pretty fast. And we managed to make our way up to the base of Wilkinson Steeple, which was in the previous photo, but basically we're about halfway up the pyramid at this point. So this is the day we want to make it to the top as well. So it was important to be going fast consistently the whole day, get as much moving as we can, as much moving done as we can. We slept just down here. These are the gannets. That's the name of the bird I forgot before. They're enormous, like a good, 50 centimeters tall or so, and they own the place. Any other small bird that comes by, they wouldn't even dare come close to the gannet. So for us to be getting up close to them, they were really unsure of themselves. They're like, why is there a human all of a sudden out here, right next to us? This is our land. No one comes here. So they were unsure whether they come and try to fight us off or leave us alone. So they were cool. They were just like literally a couple meters behind Jack there, and now Jack's on belay for the next pitch. This is quite a cool hand jam, quite cruxy. This is maybe one of the cruxes of pitch actually of the whole pyramid. Probably around grade 16, 17. Just quite awkward climbing. Nothing actually too difficult about it. Just really, really awkward movement. But the rock here was really good. Rope management is a key thing. The exposure was getting quite proper now, which was really cool. And we found some old relics of old ropes left behind. Some old pitons. So we finally managed to make it up to the notch where we thought the Highline would go around midday. So it was a good time for lunch. We were finally able to get some shade on this side of the pyramid because it was baking in the sun that entire morning. It was really, really harsh conditions to be in. So just to have a little bit of shade, just to be able to, be up in this notch, it was really good to have that progress. But, the day was starting to wear on already. So this is where we thought the Highline would go. And it turns out it was incredibly small, much smaller than we anticipated. This is one tower. I think this is from standing on top of this tower looking down at the other one. So maybe about 9 to 12 meters across and about 2 to 3 meters off level. So it would be it would be possible to rig, but very difficult, considering you can see for scale, everyone else sitting down there. So it definitely goes. It works as a Highline, but it was very average option. So we were still keen to rig it though. We had brought all the Highline gear up the pyramid after all, but our plan was essentially to wait till the next day after something to come back for this. Leave fixed lines to here so we could come back from camp, Highline it, and then descend. So that was still the plan, but we weren't exactly super inspired. Yeah, you can see it there. We've bivvied about here, climbed up to here, and we still have all of this to go in this one day to be able to top out on the summit. So the next major challenge essentially is Pillar of Porteous. It's basically the crux of the whole route is this 100-meter section of cliff. It doesn't look it here, but it's actually really steep and quite overhanging in spots, like massive cave systems. You can see here, it's this base is really steep. All the way up here, you just have these big overhanging caves. It's really hard to get around. We really weren't sure how to tackle this one either. Basically, all the photos we could find of previous expeditions and all their writings, they all went a different way here. There was no consistency in what was the easiest route. Some of them said going out here onto this left face was was the easiest, although it really looked definitely the scariest and the hardest. What we ended up doing was probably actually one of the harder ways to get around it. But basically we crossed this little rock bridge here, and I think we started up somewhere around here and started traversing across this blank slab here, and then continued, and eventually, there was a difference. I think I got to this cave here, and all I needed to do was be able to climb an extra 2 more meters, and it could have linked into this rock here and would have been able to make it past. But that 2 meters was just relied on pulling on some really chossy handholds, so I just wasn't happy enough with it. So I backed back down because it was only about 3 bits of gear and about 40 meters of climbing, so I thought that's just not safe enough to be able to try that. So back down and called Tom in again, which was my classic. If I couldn't do it, Tom, do you want to come have a look at this maybe? And so of course he did. He came in and had a crack. So yeah, this is having a go at leading that pitch, belaying Stefan in. So I just built a belay where there was gear, which was 2 number 5 0.5 cams. This is a very exposed position. You may be 300 meters above the water here, and and you can see where we've come in from, where we're going to. We're going right out here on the arete. This is Stefan took the same photo in the same spot, I think. And so Tom managed to lead his way. You can see from these photos here, he managed to find a way all the way across this by, I think, down climbing into another cave system and then going across and, sliding a couple of shrubs and a small, bush, and eventually managed to make it all the way out here to the very, very arete of this point. So it's overhanging almost the entire way over the water, about 300 meters above the ground. It's probably one of the most exposed spots on the pyramid you can get. To think that we were afraid of going out here on this face, we ended up out here by some very difficult climbing. But he managed to find a belay with a safe anchor. We couldn't see him at all. He was just around the corner yelling really loudly, saying, "Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, you guys are good to climb." So we just had to believe that it was good. So Stefan started following him out there, and we had a belay from either side on this one because it was there was basically no gear on the entire traverse. So it was good at least for the 2 middle people that if they fell, they wouldn't, take some massive pendulum. But there was a tourist boat came past at this exact moment. The Stefan's just frozen to the rocks up there, just waiting for it to pass. And so this happened a couple of times throughout the day that a tourist boat would come past. Yeah, and it's already starting to get quite late in the day here, and the shadow of the pyramid starting to form, on the water. And that was a pretty amazing sight to witness this enormous pyramid shape to start to form. You've got, Tom here on the belay, he managed to find this, massive pillar. It was actually one of the best belays out there. You've got this little bird, baby bird, just sitting in the grass there. Quite a contradiction to just the extreme exposure it was, and that pitch, I think, what was it? We coined it PTSD, post-traverse syndrome, because of how scary it was. So, but we managed to get through it, and that was, essentially the last one of the last cruxes done. And now we just have this big ramble from there. It was about, probably a good 120, 130 meters of climbing from there, just rambling up this big slope till we got to Shiva Ridge. And so Shiva Ridge was quite a good milestone to get to, because that's, where you really pop out onto the right on the ridge of the pyramid, and you can see the summit for one of the first times, and you're not very much climbing is left from you to the summit. Yeah, so this is some photos from that earlier video. This is Shiva Ridge here, so it's extremely knife blade exposed. It just, it's a good 400 meter drop straight to the ocean, maybe even more, because this is only about 60 meters here, so it's maybe even 500 meter drop straight to the ocean there. You get that on both sides. Just so we came up this backside to get onto it. You step on right in the middle, you can see both sides of the ridge. Just a really, really cool exposed rock formation. And the rock up here was actually surprisingly good. You can see, that's the ridge again. It had some, like it was, because of it got hit by the weather all the time, the rock, ended up, basically all the loose stuff was rock knocked off, and, all that was there was the lichen was the only issue really, but everything else was really solid. That was really good fun rambling across that and, making it into this notch here where a few people have actually spent the night, and some people have even spent the night right on top. But, you'd want pretty perfect weather for that, which we had. But it's also, carrying all the gear from the base to there would just be a nightmare. Just, carrying one extra sleeping bag would slow you down a lot. So, we still had to get to the top and then get back to our camp, which was over here. Over here, within, it's now late afternoon, the sun's starting to set. So again, just turned out it was in the right spot at the right time. I was able to start leading this next pitch. Made it up there about 40 meters above pretty quickly, and it was incredibly enjoyable climbing. You're slapping up this big arete, with massive sheer drop on either side, birds circling everywhere, the sun setting. It was one of the coolest pitches I've ever been able to climb on, for sure. Yeah, so you've got, just some average choss to sling for anchors again. Just sitting there watching the birds circle and the sun setting or belaying the others up. And here's Tom coming up, there's Shuba Ridge in the background. There's that Biffy site. And then, Tom led us to the top, and we basically topped out right on sunset. We had enough time just to get a couple photos in the light and basically watch the sky turn to night. All the stars start appearing. Yes, this is Lord Howe Island, where we came from a couple of days before. It was a really surreal moment to be standing on top, especially when there were a few moments in the day there where we were like, I'm not sure if we're going to, be able to make it up on top or not. But turns out, we got there with the best light, the magic light. And so another small story, Dick Smith is an Australian, philanthropist icon. He's made some food, some electronics. Anyway, basically he was on one of the first teams to get up there, or to try get up there back in the day, and didn't succeed. But it's been, something he's been obsessed with for a long time. And he ended up, I got in contact with him maybe 6 years ago when I first heard about this place, asking, I've heard, rumors if you get fined, you'll pay for them. Is that true? And he basically, he said, he gave me a call back and was like, yep, I'll pay for them, but I'll put it down here in my notes. I can't write it down anywhere officially. So years later, then I contacted him again. I said, we're actually going ahead with this expedition. Is that still true? Will you still pay for them? He said, yep, 100%. So we brought up a jar of Dick Smith's peanut butter to have on the summit, which was quite nice. And he ended up being stoked when we showed him the photos later. Was very happy with it. We'd made it to the top. So it was really surreal to sit up there and just watch the stars, come out, and just a really nice moment with the four people, you'd spent so much time with the last few weeks and preparing for this moment and to get it all to come together. We still wanted to rig the Highline, and that was still a massive priority of the mission, but this was a major milestone out of the way, which was really cool. Our friend Zach was still in the boat back at Lord Howe Island at this point, so it was a bit of a shame he wasn't able to sit up on top with us, despite helping us with so much else. But this is, it's only possible if there's someone stays behind, so that was quite nice of him. This is coming back down off it now, wrapping off. We just found all the old tat, like this is from 2014, and this stuff's probably from the 1960s or 70s. So we just managed to, collect all this gear from different anchors and just, hobble it all together and create these new anchors in order to get ourselves off. So we actually didn't need to leave anything behind. I think I left 120 centimeter sling behind, but that had been found when I'd booted it off the climb. I think the climb that we did in the Blue Mountains was practice anyway. So we ended up losing no gear getting off this thing, with maybe 13 or 14 abseils, or maybe it was more, maybe it was like 20 abseils. But lost no gear and anchors, which was amazing. We weren't expecting that at all. Jack got this great photo of Stefan and I still up on the summit, preparing the last bit of abseiling with all the stars out. So it's quite a good contrast to that last one with the sunset. It's basically the exact same angle, same shot. And it's quite, all the insects start to come out at night as well. All the birds are back in their homes, so it's really hard to walk around now because, daytime they're all flying around, but at nighttime they're all these little pods they've got to, they're going back to nest into. So all of a sudden you've got to be really careful where you step. You can't go here, can't go there. And so this is coming back on Sheeval Ridge, all of a sudden at nighttime you can't see the massive drop. It's nowhere near as scary, but yeah. You've got to be just as careful. There's some of the old gear left behind. So, this was fine. We could leave this as is, and, this is a good wrap anchor. But, some of the other ones we'd have to, just double up some of that really bad stuff. Not sure if the sound will play here, but yeah, here we go. So yeah, those are the I forgot the name again. Maybe they're the masked boobies, I think. But basically they were an incredible companion, I guess, of sorts to have on the pyramid. Just like, again, they were just, we came across them in the night there, back on their ledge. You're going, what is everyone doing here? This is our territory. No one comes here. No one ever comes here. All of a sudden, what are you guys doing? So it was pretty funny to come across them. This is an abseil anchor, nothing too crazy, but yeah, old Beano, he's got some old sling and backed it up and good to go. Some of that 60s rope again. So just wrapping big bits of rock, and yeah, finally, it took us, I think it was from, we're leaving the pyramid at the very summit, maybe 8 o'clock at night, and we got back finally to our sleeping spot at, I think, 1:30 in the morning. So it was a massively long day, and basically the sun was going to rise at about 5:30. So we had about 4 hours sleep before, that was 4 hours if we got to sleep perfectly on time, which we didn't. But, there's probably 3.5 hours sleep before the sun comes up. And then, we're just in this big oven of it's like a, perfectly white bit of cliff there. So it just catches the light and just bakes you. It's this heat thing, big solar oven on the side of the cliff. So as soon as the sun was up, we couldn't get back to sleep anymore, and especially not in the sleeping bags. It was just torture. So to have only 3 hours sleep that night and about 5 hours sleep the night before, we're all starting to feel pretty tired, pretty wrecked, especially considering the sail over. We only had about 2 days rest between the 5-day sail over and getting on the pyramid to begin with. So we're all feeling really, really tired at this point. We were really keen just to kind of get off the pyramid. You can see, how the sun just catches the light and just bakes you in this oven. Bright white rock. Stefan's not feeling very awake here. Yeah, and so then, the weather started to turn down a little bit and not be as good. You see a rogue cloud system just coming across the ocean here. We had lots of these when we're sailing because there's no land in the way. You just go straight through them. They just keep going, and it's about 15 minutes of bad weather, and then you're out the other side and it's smooth sailing again. And so essentially, the pyramid is a massive sailing ship. It's the same thing happens. It just comes towards you, and you go, okay. We just hid under the tarp we brought, and waited for the rain to hit, and it actually ended up just sweeping down the side. I think because the air currents just pushed it away from it. It's big enough that it acts as like a massive sail that deters the weather systems. Pretty incredible. But it's still scary enough sitting here on this ledge just watching this thing approaching, going, oh no, we're about to just get completely destroyed. yeah, it turns out most of them were fine, but basically we'd left some wrap lines that last night, you know, to help us get back down faster. You know, if we hadn't left them, we might not have been back there till about 3 in the morning. You know, we might have only gotten an hour's sleep in. But basically here's, so we flipped some coins and Tom and I started ascending back up the lines to go retrieve them and, you know, basically get them back down so that we can continue down the pyramid now, because we decided we were just too tired to be able to go back up there and try and highline at that point. You know, the line was quite small. It was a really tricky rig. It was just going to be a really, really difficult challenge to be able to do. So it was just, the mission was now to retrieve lines and to bail. So here we are up in the notch, you know, quite high back up on the pyramid again, retrieving our lines, and another system's coming in. It looks really bad this time. You know, we were pretty worried about this one. But amazingly, it came through, you know, completely dumped a lot of water, but managed to stay pretty dry under some little caves. And, you know, about 20 minutes later, we were just descending down the pyramid again, and it completely passed. It was blue skies, sunny again. But we got our lines back. So we wrapped down, you know, threw our ropes over the edge. They landed on Stepan on his head and surprised him because he hadn't seen us for about, you know, 3 or 4 hours. They'd just been sitting in the cave. Not sure what they were doing, but just kind of hanging out, passing the time, waiting for us to come back. So it was a massive surprise when he just landed on his head. But yeah, then we continued out of our sleeping spot. We were finally able to leave there. You know, it was a perfect one, about only 20 meters below. It was a great sleeping platform, but we we didn't notice that at the time. So we were just stuck to this really small, awkward ledge up the top there. So here's Tom coming down off the abseil, and yeah, I don't know if, you know, if you've never abseiled with locked gear before, this is not how you do it. This is the worst way to do it. Is don't put it on your back. You want to hang the weight of the heavy gear off your harness right here, so it hangs between your legs, and then that way, you know, because he's exaggerating a little bit, but he's really not as well. It's extremely difficult to keep your body up. It takes a lot of core tension just to hold on to the gear there. So this is coming down, you know, starting to reverse everything we were doing, you know, 3 or 4 days before. Again, the sun's starting to set, you know, the day's running out of daylight. Like, it just goes surprisingly fast when there's so much ground to cover on this thing. It's so big. This is all the birds circling at sunset again. You know, there's just thousands of them, so many different species. It's a very, very cool place to be. It smelled pretty bad as well because there's just bird shit everywhere. Just oily, fishy shit all over the pyramid. You can see, like, anywhere it's white is, you know, just covered in it, like centimeters thick. That smells pretty bad. But we are going down, and we basically got back down to Gannett Green this afternoon, to camp there again for the night. So this was luxury. You know, I was able to spread out the whole sleeping bag, have a spot to myself, have some. This was great. You know, went to sleep looking at the stars. It was a really nice, quiet night. We were finally, you know, we weren't getting back at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was about 9:30 or something. So I was looking forward to a really nice long sleep in. It's gonna be great. And then about 1 hour later, I woke up to raindrops on my face. Oh no, it's raining. So basically, I had to jump out of there, and because this isn't really a cave, this is just a wall. And so ran up the hill a little bit to where Stepan and Jack were, and said, "Mate, look, we're going to have to spread out the tarp and share it over all of us, and I'm going to have to come hunker down in the cave you guys are in." Tom had another tarp he could put over himself, so he actually ended up taking my spot there. And then, you know, basically the rain stopped really fast, but then the wind started picking up. And so all of a sudden I'm on this new camping spot, you know, rocks all underneath us, massive rocks, you know. It was really uncomfortable, and the wind started howling so intensely that, within half an hour, like, we were just trying to hold the tarp down on top of us to cut the wind out a bit. And, my fingers were going numb and my wrist was going numb from wrapping the tarp around, you know, just trying to hold on to it. And so I can't get to sleep holding on to this, you know, we're going to have to put this away. and Jack was holding onto it on the other side. We had about, several layers deep of rock all around us trying to pin it down as well, and they were all, it was getting pulled out from underneath them. So we thought, we just have to put this tarp away. So we put it away, and then instantly, the wind starts cutting through the sleeping bag, and it's just going, you just cut through to your core, so cold and sharp, and so it was just turned into a really terrible night's sleep very quickly. This is step on in the morning. Ironically though, this is still our best night's sleep yet. We got about, I think, 7 or 8 hours this night, which was amazing. We were able to recover a little bit from the previous nights. Yes, this is, Stefan's pillow last night. So yeah, this is Jack. If you just lay him out flat, that's exactly where he slept last night. He didn't even bother to move these rocks here out of the way. We were all there was rocks everywhere all underneath us. So it wasn't much of a good bivvy spot. We ended up finding a pretty good one just around the corner, but it was, it's too dark to be able to, and too, windy and all that to go looking for that. Jeff lost his helmet that night, just got, blown away in the wind. Yeah, this is Gannett Green, so, finally we were able to get a bit of distance from each other as well. We could walk about 100 meters away, go take a stroll. It was quite nice to be able to go walk around, not be worried about, going in more than 5 meters and you fall off a cliff. So this was a really lovely spot to go and spend the morning. But yeah, sooner rather than later, we had to start moving on again because, we can't just wait around all day because Zach was going to come pick us up. We'd organised with him that this is when we would be ready to leave. And so he was going to be ready to do this, to pick us up. We'd had no contact since. There's no radio reception between the two islands. You can't get internet, anything like that. So it was purely just, he dropped us off and he's like, okay, I'll see you in a few days. And you go, yep, we'll see you in a few days. And so then, a few days later, we were just hoping that he'd turn up, and he hadn't had an accident on the way, that he was still there. So that was quite a tense moment to be expecting him. This is that other bivvy spot I was talking about, actually. Great, amazing spot. Only another one more abseil away, we would have made it to here. But yeah, so on the way down, we're now on this last grass slabs here. Those the ones we ascended right at the beginning. We've not got far to go. Probably only about 50 meters left to the waterline, and all of a sudden, I did a small abseil and I got into the grass, and the other guys were up in a tree behind, and then a boat turned up. And I was like, oh no, boat. So dropped to the ground. I'm just on this flat, this big angled grass slab. There's not much to protect myself. I'm wearing some pretty camouflage clothing, but there's nothing more I can do than just lie flat on the ground, which is plain view of the boat. Just don't move basically, and hope they just don't look up and have a look at the grass. Doesn't see you. So I just kind of lay still there for a while while the other guys got the shade in the tree, and it's really intensely hot morning sun at this time, really humid right near the water. It got so hot and sweaty that it turns out this boat, by the way, was a dive boat. So they just put the anchor in, around about here, and then everyone just started getting out, and all the tourists started having a dive. Oh no, it's going to be here for hours. There's nothing I could do but lie here. Didn't have any water on me. Just had a little bit of sunscreen. So just started reapplying sunscreen every 5 minutes, getting scorched by the sun, to the point where I was digging my arms into the soil to try and protect them from sunburn. And there were little lizards starting to crawl around and coming up and drinking the sweat out of my armpits. And I was really becoming one with the pyramid at this point. Just really waiting for this boat to leave. I was sure they'd already seen me as well. I was like, I just look stupid. They're like, why is the man still there? Is he just pretending that, we don't exist? So, it was really hard to watch them having a great time swimming around the water, just in absolute agony up here in the grass, waiting for them to leave. But, eventually they did. You can see, by the way, as well, our friend Zach is out here in our boat, just awkwardly hanging around, just waiting for this boat to leave as well while we're sitting here. So the whole time was going, we're so close to getting off this thing, but we don't want to get caught. So we're just waiting for this tourist boat to leave. So we I don't have any more photos from between here and getting back to the boat, but we managed to start scrambling back down to the cliff, and then the boat came back. So we radioed back, the boat's coming back. We all dropped to the ground again, and the boat went away again, and it came back and it went away again, and we were all just really tense. We're getting closer and closer to the water here. So any time it comes back, which is so obvious at this point now, we can't even just lie down. They'll just see us very clearly. So we're just really hoping they weren't coming back. And Zach was radioing us and letting us know, look, they're just around the corner. They're all right. You guys can do. Just have somewhere to hide if they do come. We have nowhere to hide. We hope they don't come back. But anyway, managed to get all the gear ready, everything sorted, packed back into dry bags. Something that took weeks to prepare before we left. Getting all the gear meticulously shoved, into the right dry bags at the right angles, and now we've just got to throw it all together in 5 minutes and just hope it all fits in the dry bags, which amazingly did. Mostly because we drank and ate all the food. So there wasn't any of that space, but normally this is the only journey just fit in the dry bags to begin with. So then we just launched back out in the water, and Tom and Jack swam back out to the boats and attached the tagline on, and then they just towed all the bags out into the ocean, and then sailed back and picked them all back up on the way. And then Stefan and I jumped in afterwards and swam out after the boat and hopped back on. It was much calmer waters this time. It was a lot nicer to land again. And we got back on the boat, and Jack said, "Mate, there's sharks underneath you." And I was like, "Oh yeah, right. Good one, great joke." But it turns out they actually were. So Jack got these good photos of them. So we all just jumped back in and started snorkeling around. And it's pretty hard to see here, but this is like a big coral tower, and there's a whole bunch of them around. There's these massive towers just in the water. Full of life, heaps and heaps of colourful fish all over the place. These little, probably about 1.5 metre long, maybe 2 metre long Galapagos sharks. So it's full of wildlife. It was really, really amazing to be swimming around under here. You don't quite get the scope from this photo, but it's a world-class diving spot. So to get an opportunity to see under the water was really, really special as well, especially, after just getting to wash 4 days of sweat and dirt off you and bird poo and all of that as well. That was really, really nice ending to it. So, we'll hop back on board. All 5 of us were in the water there, just letting the boat just drift around because the oceans were much calmer. So Zach was jumping in there with us. But yeah, we got it all done and, hopped back on board, and we're able to start heading back to Lord Howe, mission complete. Just really hoping that the guiding service hasn't actually seen us and reported us to the police, and we're not about to turn up and get big fines. And, either way, we were just, very happy that we'd made it off the pyramid and we're all safe and all good. There was a couple moments on the pyramid, actually. I don't know if I can find a photo in time, but it's a fair bit back. But basically, there was one section where Jack actually went to go and move around this bit of rock and basically hug this fridge-size block, and it just started to rotate off and fall towards him, pushing him off the pyramid. So he had no choice but to just kind of muscle it out of the way and push it off the pyramid before it pushed him off of the pyramid. So that was really scary. There was another spot just maybe another about 5 hours later in the middle of the night after that, where I was just kind of hopping down this little ledge and kind of landed, just stepping down onto some rocks that were just sitting there, and then stepped down on them, and it just completely gave way, revealing, complete blackness underneath, because it was the 300-meter drop straight off the side of the pyramid underneath them. So I started falling towards the void, and there was nothing to do but throw an arm out and just catch onto the surrounding rock around, and amazingly there was a hold there. My hand landed on it, and it didn't fall apart and disintegrate. And that managed to keep me from falling off the pyramid, which was, it was really quite a terrifying moment. And after that, Tom and I basically just sat down for about 15 minutes and just kind of took in what had just happened. It's the reality of scrambling around on a chossy volcanic sea stack in the middle of nowhere is, you can try and mitigate the risk as much as you want, but occasionally there's some things that you just don't expect to happen. So essentially, yeah, we're feeling really great to get off of it and be sailing away from it now and back to civilization. So we pulled in. Here's the boat with the sunset. On our little private beach. The boat's only about 50 meters out there, or maybe 150 meters in. So you just jump off the boat and swim into shore with a dry bag full of clothes. Get dry off and then just get changed on the beach. And we wandered into the bolo from here and had a big meal that night, which is really nice. Here's another day on the island after getting reaccustomed. We had to change our moor spot actually, so we were moored about 850 meters away now because there were some high winds starting to come up. So we had to move to the other end of the island. Jack's getting a tow in back. Yeah, some of the other people with boats were able to help us out and get us back to our boat and get us supplies because, essentially we're living, right here. We're so close to the island, but we still need to get all of our water, all of our food, all of our fuel, all the copious loaves of $15 bread that we bought, had to all be moved from here to there. And the only way to do that is by swimming it or with someone else's boat. We had one kayak and a stand-up paddleboard, but, this night here, the stand-up paddleboard just got blown away. So we only had one kayak between five of us. And I don't know if there's enough noise here, if we can hear it at all. So it was this particular night we had like a massive amount of wind came in, and I think it was 50 knots or something, which I forget what it was in K's, but it would be about 100 kilometers an hour. And that blew the stand-up paddleboard away. And this other boat, it actually the ropes it had connecting it to the ground snapped, and it was this multi-million-dollar yacht that these five guys owned together. Just started running aground and drifting around all around us in the middle of the night. So we were, yelling at them to get away from us. And several times they missed our boat by only a meter or two. So it was, we were just frantically on the radio back and forth with them, and the police and one other rescue guy on the island was there too, trying to direct them. And basically they were just incompetent, rich dudes with, no sailing experience. Not that, we had a lot either, but a lot more than them. And, they were going, oh no, your mooring's broken, but actually it was theirs. And ended up basically, it was this nightmare of a night. So we just got to let all our frustration out on them and, give them a lot of swear words and gestures to get away from us. But yeah, the only way to move around the island, you get to hitchhike occasionally. There's maybe about 10 or 15 cars from the people that live on there. And, one of the things we wanted to do before we left, because we were still waiting for a weather window at this point to be able to leave. We were just effectively trapped at this point until we could get back to Sydney. And we really wanted to get on top of this thing. It shows again, Mount Gower, this 850 meter high mountain. It's one of the must-do kind of things on Lord Howe, but, you have to have a licensed guide show you up. But, we weren't so much for following the rules at this point. So we swam ashore from the boat and started walking down around about midday and, walked, and with this we got a hitchhike for about a kilometre here. But then you had to walk the rest of the way. So for the next 7 Ks just to walk to the base of it, and Stepan and I went barefoot, which was a terrible choice in the end of things. But mostly because when you're swimming in from the boat to shore, you've got to bring everything with you. You've got to bring your shoes, water, sunscreen, everything, your clothes. So shoes were just it's not necessary. We'll be all right without them. So we walked the whole way without them. Got to the start of the mountain, clearly seeing the sign here, which you've shown about a second. So, we just walked straight past that one and really hoped that we wouldn't come across a licensed guide on on the on Mount Gower. You can see the infrastructure they've put in for the tourists, because there's, the average age of people that visit this island are in their 60s or 70s. So it's pretty amazing they take them up here. I'm actually was very impressed at the rock quality on this too. You could host some of Australia's best sport climbing just here, but it'll never get permission to be developed. But this is insanely high quality rock, really, really featured, really, really cool. Yeah, so we just started walking up the trail, making our way up, probably about 200, 300 meters off the ground at this point. Kind of continuing up, and it gets quite steep, and it's pretty amazing that they take 60, 70-year-olds up this thing. If you slipped up here, you'd almost certainly die. They don't make you wear any helmets or harnesses or anything. You just hand over hand up all these ropes and make your way up the mountain. And at some point, it kind of transforms from this low island vegetation to this really high altitude kind of cloud forest. Really amazing vegetation up there, just really moss covered. Lots of currawongs kind of a currawong will follow you for a little bit, and then it'll disappear into the woods, and another one will come out and follow you through his territory. And the whole time there's all these they're quite big petrels chasing you around on the ground as well, because they're terrible at taking off and landing, so they have to crawl their way up trees. And you've got these species in here, like this is this particular palm, which is endemic only to the top 100 meters or 150 meters of Mount Gower. Like, it lives nowhere else in the world, and it's got this white top to it. It looks like it's almost been painted on. And you've got the petrels down here. It's just a really crazy place up there. It's a totally different environment as soon as you cross this threshold in it. Which global warming is no doubt just going to move that threshold higher and higher until all of that's gone, and it just all looks the same the whole way up. But yeah, you get right up here to the top. There's Mount Lichberg. If anyone can get permission for that, that would be one of the world's greatest highlines. It's about 1.5 kilometers long, and 750 meters high, 850 meters high. The amazing exposure that would really be phenomenal. But I doubt that's going to be allowed anytime soon. But yeah, you get up there, and there's just this enormous amount of birds in the sky. And if you yell out really loud, they all go, "Oh, what's happening? What's happening?" And they all start squawking back and flocking around the noise and start landing and crash landing on you. And they all live in these little holes in the ground. So, you're standing where you're standing, all of a sudden you look down at your feet and a little bird comes out and he goes, what's happening? Someone's landed on my front lawn, and they all start having fights and then beating each other up, and you just go, whoa. So it was really intense really quickly if you just scream into the sky. So I think there's this right here should also show that with the noise they make is pretty crazy. Or maybe, yeah, this one here will be better when this loads. Yeah, it was incredible being up there on top of the thing just all by ourselves. Again, like a equally as impressive mountain as Ball's Pyramid, but just nowhere it's difficult to get to.
Give him a throw. Give him as well.
So they actually really enjoyed being thrown up into the air because they're pathetic at taking off and landing. Like, when they want to land, they just come right in and crash land into the ground. I'm amazed they don't break all their wings all the time. And when they want to take off, they have to climb up a tree and then take off from there because they can't just take off from the ground. So, you look at one and it'll just be sitting there for about 10 minutes stuck in a tree, and it looks back at you like, yep, this is where I want to be. And 20 minutes later, you look back and it's managed to climb 30 centimeters higher, and it goes, okay, finally I'm high enough, and it's launched out of the tree and can glide out of the way. So when you pick them up, they're actually quite enjoy it. Like this one's managed to climb its way into Tom's head just so it can take off from there. Yeah, you can see it up there. just ready to go. Yeah, and you can see Ball's Pyramid from here. It's very faint at the moment, actually, in this photo. Not sure why it's so faint, but yeah, you can see Ball's Pyramid in the background. So that was really cool to be able to see that up from the top of Mount Gower as well. Yeah, and on our way down, sun's starting to come down again. This habit of managing to make the absolute most out of every day, probably because we left it a bit late in the mornings to start anything. But yeah, there we go. So yeah, again, just descending down, coming back along all the paths, back to civilization, and that was all. That was a great little side trip to be able to get that done. And before we left, we still wanted. There was at least another major mission was the boys wanted to try out some surfing on the island because it's meant to have some of the world's greatest surfing. Being an island, it gets hit by swell from all different directions, so there's usually a wave pumping, but for some reason there wasn't a lot going on for all the time we were there. But the surf radar seemed to say that there was going to be some really good stuff down here on this whole breakout here. We're moored just down here in this South Island bit at this time. Or we were moored on the top bit. We were moving down to here, so we brought the boat around, and the sun's starting to set, and the waves were just barreling perfectly. So the guys paddled out literally from the mooring, 300-400 meters away, and there's all the waves breaking. So they just started having a go at them and having a great session. Stefan and I just cooking dinner on board. Nothing could go wrong. It's just the perfect time to be alive. And next minute, all of a sudden, Jack's outside, and Jack and Zach are outside paddling in with Tom on top of the surfboard, and he's barely conscious and swallowing water, and he can't feel the lower half of his body, and he's just been swept up by a wave and dumped into the reef, just plummeted straight to the ground. So this has just gone from the best moment in the world to the worst. So we managed to get him up on board, with the winch system, and then cut his wetsuit off and get him into bed with some codeine, and called the police officer, who manages everything on the island. And basically he's like, yeah, just leave him till the next morning. And we managed to paddle him in the next morning and get a lift in the back of the police officer's ute into the medical, the one little GP clinic the next morning. And it turned out he ended up being pretty all right, but he basically just destroyed his knee in the reef, just kneed it. It's like free falling 10 meters into a reef with his knee. So he was able to walk around on crutches actually the next day, but it was massive amount of worry for a minute there, and our plans were to leave this next day. So it was pretty clear he wasn't going to be able to help very much on the boat. So he got a flight straight back to Sydney. And we stuck around for another day, I think maybe even two actually, until the weather window was good enough to head off again. Yeah, so it's a pretty magic place to still spend a couple of days. Yeah, I think this was actually either this was our last bolo feed. Yeah, this was either the last bolo feed or this is the one I think straight after Ball's Pyramid, but I can't remember. But this was the classic having a big steak and chips at the pub full of old people. We had to dress up, carefully, have our shoes on, and all this stuff, which is quite funny after you jump off the boat and swim in, naked, and then get changed on shore, and take out your fancy shoes and a shirt and and go get a feed, and then when you leave, you take your shoes off straight away, and walk back to the boat barefoot and, strip off again and swim back under the moonlight, or, paddle back with all the stars out, just on this nice, gentle, night breeze back to the boat. And, it's quite surreal to be living it's almost like a double life, coming into this retirement village of an island, but living, so simply and so rawly, just out, just under their noses. Yeah, then the time was to leave. It was all done. We were finally able to get out of there and stop spending $100 a day just on getting the bare minimum amount of food to eat, because it was so expensive to live there. So we're glad to be out of there, be back on the water. Conditions were looking a lot better than our sail over. We didn't have as much wind, so we'd have to use the motor a lot more, but it was going to be a lot flatter, which was nicer for sure. So we ended up catching a couple of fish actually, so we caught one at Lord Howe, and I think one when we got back into near Sydney, which made for some great feeds. Fried up some rice and some fish, and it was the Instagram lifestyle of being on a boat on the way back, versus the way over was just this really raw experience. The way back was very much more chilled out. We were able to jump off and take some swims around. You can jump off the front of the boat and then try and, you'd have to swim really, really fast and try and catch the back of the boat, because even though it doesn't look like it's moving very fast, it was moving really, really fast. So you'd end up, it was quite a funny game, because if you missed it, if you got it wrong, the boat would have to take this massive turnaround to try to pick you up. And if you fell in at night time, especially if you're on a night shift by yourself, no one would find you. The boat would just start sailing off in random directions, and you'd just be lost at sea forever. You'd just freeze and drown basically within probably half an hour to an hour. So it was, as much as you felt safe being on the boat, if you got too comfortable and leant too far overboard and slipped off in the middle of the night and you were the only one on shift, you just had no chance. So you had to be on guard the whole time. But it led for some really nice moments as well. Here's the moon, I think, was starting to rise or starting to set. I think it'll be starting to set, because this is, you're heading straight for the moon, because that's the direction that Australia is in. Gliding down the moon's pathway with, the sun's going to come up behind you soon. This is, pre-dawn. There's bioluminescence in the water, and dolphins going next to you and lighting up the bioluminescence. So you're just in this really surreal landscape. It was quite magic sometimes, and then a storm would roll through and you're just in the most hectic situation, struggling to keep hold of the boat. You don't want it to rip out the sails and tear down the mast, and all of a sudden you're out the storm and it's back to bioluminescence and dolphins and, full moons. And it's just this really crazy two sides to sailing, I discovered. So this is, the moon's just set and the sun's starting to rise up. You're starting to get these spectacular sunrises, just orange all around the horizon, really nice, very calm, glassy water, and just a really lovely entrance back to Sydney, to have this. I think we had amazing sunrises for all of the 5 days on the way back. We finally got back in. It was like 1 o'clock. Not 1 o'clock. It would have been about 8:30, 9 o'clock or something, and Stefan's girlfriend was able to come around and deliver us some takeaway, which was just amazing. We just collapsed on the ground and just devoured this stuff. And basically it was a very welcome home from what was an amazing trip. Yeah, thank you for listening, guys. I'm not sure how we can
Chris,
back on now. But
how did you go to the toilet on the boat? How did you shit on the boat? How did you shit from the boat?
Oh yeah, not with ease. It was pretty difficult. Basically, someone else is sitting next to you controlling where the boat goes, while you're just staring them straight in the face from about 50 centimeters away, hanging your bum over the edge, and you're just getting washed by waves and you're freezing cold. And every time the boat lurches, which is, every 2 seconds, your core just has to tense up to keep yourself holding on, because if you let go, you fall in the freezing water in the middle of the night and not be able to be rescued. So you're kind of taking a shit free solo off the edge. No, so it was really, really stressful and hard to even be able to go to the toilet. Like that was just a daily struggle to try and get anything out. I don't know if that answers the question.
I'm very glad that I heard that.
Well, were you considering a sailing trip soon?
No, I just like to think of how you guys were shitting there.
Oh, yeah. With close proximity, staring right at ourselves. Yeah. I don't know if you're able to turn the sound back on for other questions or anything else.
Guys, you can, if you have something, please do ask, but unmute yourself first. And Chris, show your face for a bit so people remember what you look like.
Yeah, I don't know how to.
You should have a stop presenting button.
I'll just do that. Okay. But no, hang on, don't I need to present?
But you have to show your clear your camera so that people can see you.
How do I show the camera? I thought it was all.
There should be a camera button.
Is this leave call? Can try present.
Okay, I think this might actually conclude the session nicely.
Yeah.
So everybody could hear you. Thank you so much for telling. This was really cool to hear.
No worries. Thank you very much for listening.
Oh, somebody's asking questions. Yeah, guys, just ask. Naveen
I'll see if I can rejoin.
Naveen said, what were the rescue plans?
The rescue plan for which part?
In case something went wrong. I don't know. Were there any?
Yeah, I mean, like we... Hello?
Oh, we can see you. Sweet. Stop presenting because we can see you now. And we can hear you too.
Okay. Hang on. Should I hang up the phone as well? Yeah.
But then you have to also unmute.
Here we go.
Perfect.
Cool. I think is this... No, camera's off. Camera's on. That works? Everything's working?
Yeah, we see you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess, I mean, we tried to work through contingencies for like minor rescue, like for situations here and there where we go, okay, well, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? So it was really like quite particular rescue for individual circumstances. I guess, overall, there wasn't really like a, what happens if the pyramid falls down? How do we rescue ourselves then? It's like, everything's really individual things. There's obviously, you can use classic rescue things for if someone abseils down and, they go over an edge and, they need to come back up. Well, it's like you have to self-rescue there, you just press it back up. So basically a lot of it was relying on everyone has their own self-rescue skills to get themselves out of almost every situation they put themselves in. And, anything else that happens that we couldn't, foresee, we're a team of resourceful people which on the spot we can, mostly come up with a way to solve that there. So there wasn't anything that we came across where we were like, well, this is, we really have no idea. Basically, besides the engine dismounting in the boat, that was really probably the most difficult. I think the question was, what about the communication in the boat failing? Yeah, that was a pretty big unknown. Like, turns out our mate, who was Zach, who took the boat back to Lord Howe and then came to pick us back up again, he had quite some troubles because we took all the head torches off the boat when we left him. We took, turns out the Black Diamond ones fall apart with salt water, but $5 Bunnings ones are really good with salt water. So we took all of them with us and he had no head torches. So when he got back to Lord Howe, he had to navigate that channel again by sail, no motor, by himself. And it's, getting to dusk, he can barely see anything. And manages to get himself in and, you know, hooked onto the line without careening into shore. So it was really amazing that then he came to pick us up, you know, and we're still fine. So we were just really relying a lot on things not going wrong. Like it's really hard to have contingencies on a lot of those things. I don't get why you guys were hiding from tourists when you were back on the pyramid. Well, when we were on the pyramid, we couldn't let the tourists see us because, you know, we're on it. Like that's, you know, it's illegal to be on the pyramid in any kind. You can't land on it. When we were back on Lord Howe, you know, we weren't hiding from people there. We were walking around. We just weren't able to mention anything. It was really weird to have the. It was like living a double life there as well. You had to be like, oh, you know, they'd be like, oh, so have you been seeing the sights? And you go, oh, yeah, we've been walking around and seeing everything, you know, been having a great time here. But really for the last 5 days or 4 days, we'd been off on Paul's Pyramid and, you know, couldn't mention any of that. The fine, I think, is $5,000 a person. But, yeah, Dick Smith will pay any of it. So if anyone's interested in an adventure, it's pretty risk-free, really.
Which item of like food or supplies you got a lot of, but you didn't need in the end?
I think like we had what's it called? Yeah, when we were on the pyramid, I think it's echo or something like that, or audio. Yeah, we had lots of. Well, basically everything we took on the pyramid we ate. The only thing we didn't eat was a bit of porridge, I think, like about 100 grams of porridge. But I think we did eat that before we got off, but it was only because we had it and it was extra. But that was the only extra bit of food. Otherwise, we ate everything else we took on the pyramid, which basically our diet consisted of 3 Cliff Bars for breakfast or 3 nut bars and then 3 bumper bars for lunch and then a dehydrated meal for dinner. And so we had that for 4 days. It was pretty slim rations, but, you know, the lighter we could go, the easier it was to carry. You know, the faster we could go was the idea. Yeah.
Also, Paul asked about a lady catching you in a cafe. What was that?
Oh, yeah. So as soon as we got back to land, you know, we pulled it all off. No one had caught us. You know, the cop. You know, we could even talk to him on the radio. He was none the wiser. So we went back to the bolo to have our celebratory dinner, and the bolo was closed. So we went to the golf club and they had free sides, you know, so we just demolished the free sides. These 4 really hungry guys who've barely eaten for the last 4 days, you know, coming to the salad bar, they were quite surprised. But we were sitting outside really suspiciously, just sharing our stories with Zach because he'd been, you know, back on Lord Howe with the boat the whole time. And, you know, we were keen to hear how he'd been getting on. And basically we're sharing him, showing photos, and this other lady, you know, the waiter was coming out to serve us and she was getting really suspicious, going, what are they talking about out here that's, you know, so she was really curious and came out really fast at one point and walked around behind and tried to grab a glimpse of the phone and saw about, you know, half a second of footage and was like, oh, did you guys go on Paul's Pyramid? And we're like, oh, like we didn't say anything. We were just, we needed a backup plan for that. Really, we were just, you know, what is it? Just struck with, oh no, we didn't say anything, and so it was the worst answer we could have given. And so she was like, oh no, I won't say anything. But I mean, really, she wouldn't have cared. You know, for the most part, most of the population of the island don't really care either, and I don't even think the COP has a massive opinion on it. Really, it's more just that legislation. That's what it states. And, you know, now that we're off the island as well, it's pretty chilled out. Like even Dick Smith's even wrote to the local newspaper there that, you know, we went and climbed it. He didn't mention our names or show any faces or anything, but he said, you know, 4 people who just recently climbed it, you know, you guys should change the laws back. You know, as long as you, like, they're not that as, I guess, you know, anti climbing it as, you know, it seems on the outset. But, you know, obviously if you get caught on it and, you know, they're there, it's the job of the policeman is, you know, his job is then going to have to be to find you, you know. he can't really turn a blind eye to it if he sees you in the act on there and there's evidence of it. But yeah. So anyway, that was quite interesting. Thanks for listening a lot, guys. I don't know if there's no other questions. I appreciate a lot the time you guys have sacrificed.
Sick. Thanks, Chris. It was awesome.
Thanks, man.